So let me just introduce Ailey to you folks because he is part of our VRS team and he's going to kind of take us through our very high level introduction to VRS. Um, I've helped Ailey understand PDS Health and James some of our goals here. Explained to him that you had some great insights shared from our friends at Blackhawk at Interactions a couple weeks ago. Ailey's certainly familiar with our friends at Blackhawk and their experience, so we can kind of touch on that a little bit. But this really was an effort to introduce the VRS story and how we provide the value, and specifically in regards to what we want to refer to as Jumpstart. Jumpstart is really going to be our initial engagement of how we get to learn about you folks and help you kind of meet some of the objectives you have. This isn't intended to be a long-term engagement. This is intended to be really how we introduce yourselves, provide the value, and where we go forward. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of next steps. But Ailey, I'll let you introduce yourself and your role, and then jump into it with our friends at PDS.
Sounds great. Thank you all very much for letting me come to speak to you today. My name is Ailey Schneider, based in Stamford, Connecticut. I have been with NiCE for a little while right now, but have over 20 years history in the contact center world. Today, we're going to talk about the value realization services, specifically the Jumpstart, as Scott was saying, and Scott and Casey and I have had a couple of different conversations about PDS and where you've been over the past year or two and where it is you're planning to go. And I don't know if you've had any experience. I'm sorry, James, I think you have had some experience with value realization services, but just to set the stage exactly for who value realization services are inside of NiCE. It's a conglomerate of more than 100 resources with various backgrounds and industry experiences and multi-vendor expertise. These people have sat in your shoes before in operations roles, in executive roles. They know both NiCE products as well as the industry products, and they know exactly how to help navigate customers with various disparate solutions integrated into NiCE. We've done this dozens and dozens of times before for customers all across different verticals and industry spectrums. So from customers with simply a couple hundred agents to literally 20,000 agents. That was our largest. We have a number of different areas that we like to focus on, but one of the best parts of value realization services is this Jumpstart program, which was started several years ago. And the goal of Jumpstart, it's actually very, very keenly designed. It is to help us, and from an outside-in perspective, get to know your business. It's usually a multi-week strategic engagement, and the goal is to align to where it is that you're going, to learn your business from the outside in, and to help create a transformational roadmap. And so often, customers deploy technologies, and they're often missing the connective tissue to try and kind of bring it all into one cohesive vision. And one of the best parts about the VRS team is that it has this agnostic version of consulting. That's really one of the best parts, because we don't hire with inside of NiCE. We hire all outside. So we have people all across the spectrum, from all of our web products, all across the AI teams, as well as CCAS. So we pride ourselves on having as a diverse a team of people across different industries as possible. At the end of this, the idea is to provide PDS with a strategic roadmap, and that is going to really take shape after a series of different engagements. And those engagements are really with our team performing stakeholder alignment meetings, focus groups. It would be wonderful if we could come on site and have one-on-one meetings with a number of different folks in your organization. But let me just say, at the end of this entire engagement, the point of this is to hand you several tangible results. This business consulting engagement is not going to essentially end with a paragraph or two of recommendations. These are going to be very specific, very hands-on, and very on point for PDS. Where do you want to go? What are your goals? What are your objectives? What's preventing you from getting there? And at the end, as I said, you'll have tangible, metric-driven outputs, and that could take the form of a current state assessment. It would be a maturity continuum analysis. Exactly what do you have deployed today in your environment with NiCE, with third-party systems? What are our key findings and recommendations? And those are really I would say that's the heart of what it is that we would provide to you. We would have all of these focus groups and these meetings with multifaceted people in your organization, and the goal is to have very targeted findings and recommendations. And of course, what are the low-hanging fruits? For example, if you were to make these tweaks or these priorities, what exactly would be the short-term and long-term impact? So the value impact and the effort associated with that. And again, this is supposed to be a relatively short 4 to 6 week engagement for us. And what I want to really emphasize is that, this is not NiCE backing up the bus and 10 people getting out, and we're not going to hit you with 150 meetings. That's not the way this is supposed to work, right? You have day jobs, you have responsibilities. The goal here is for us to provide certain transformation consultants and business consultants to gather all this data. And the way we do that, again, is through information gathering sessions, and as well as other documentation that we would ask for you. The output, again, is really only as good as the input. So this is NiCE's way of investing in PDS. NiCE, and I'm sorry, Scott and Casey have both made a very clear, impassioned, what's the word I'll choose, statement that PDS has a fantastic opportunity, and VRS can help kind of sharpen and focus that through the series of business consulting engagements. So that's why this is there's no cost to you. This is a free of charge engagement on NiCE's behalf for 4 to 6 weeks, but there is obviously cost on our side, right? We are investing in this relationship, both in the short term and the long term. And as that's the case, the things that we would ask is that you really help us drive and own this throughout the entire 4 to 6 weeks. Again, we're not going to be taking over your calendars for a month and a half, but we really do want to have focused conversations and get to the heart of so many different things that you're trying to do. So if we could open the kimono, be transparent, give us time and energy, what you're going to get out of this will be multifold of like just a treasure trove of really good information.
Right.
I'll leave that there. Yes,
Ellie,
please.
Quick question.
Yes.
And you may already have this in the document. Of course, I'm kind of thinking by the way, Derek Coleman, I'm one of the senior program managers here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm coming at this with like you said, a consulting hat. What documentation or information should we start sort of cataloging for you in preparation for these 4 to 6 week conversations? So that's question number one. Second question is, over that 4 to 6 week period, because again, we're now entering into summer schedules. I almost like to block and tackle as early as I can. How much time commitment are we really looking at from it may be driven by maybe, director on down, but what do you think from an average conversation focus group participation over that 4 to 6 week period? Because we may get asked that question, like how much commitment are you asking of me to, now open up the kitties and allow you guys to look under rocks and otherwise?
So those are both extremely relevant and valid questions. I'm not going to deflect them. I'm going to say they'll probably be covered in a subsequent conversation. So if you're all amenable to this concept of a VRS engagement, I'd like to bring on one of my leaders and the actual delivery leader of the VRS team. Her name is Becky Roman. So it's not going to be somebody else that's going to be delivering this. It's she and her team do both Jumpstarts and regular full-on VRS engagements. So if at any point in the future you were to say, we love that short-term engagement, we'd like to continue, or we'd like to build on that, it's going to be Becky and her team, most likely the exact same people who you've been dealing with for the VRS Jumpstart, that will continue to work with you, because there's no need to rebuild the relationships that have already been established. I'm not going to deflect. I would Allow
Ask
me
me
to
to
get back
hold
to you.
those questions. Yep,
No,
fair enough.
I don't think you need to hold them. Allow me to reply back in writing by maybe the end of
Sure.
today or tomorrow, because if you're already kind of thinking that way, then I will start to answer those questions. So exactly how much time would be involved and what data documentation would need to be kind of assembled. I think those are
Fine
the
and
two
fair.
questions.
Okay, thank you for
Okay.
that.
Of course. Were there any other questions from anybody else?
No, I
Or
think
you,
we're
Derek?
good. No,
Okay.
not at this time.
Okay. So let me just continue to the next slide over here. This is really something that we share along the lines of every Jumpstart, because again, it's free of charge, but not free of cost. NiCE bears all the costs here. We really want this to be the output to be as if you went to a big four, big five consulting firm and you paid to have all this consulting done. This is what we would like to ask from you. So we would need those executive sponsors and a project champion, and of course the subject matter experts. This is just our way of saying these are the 3 or so different domains that we've identified that have, if we can gather these people or identify these types of people within PDS, this is going to go swimmingly well. I think that in addition to the NiCE consulting team, if we can find and identify and coerce and really think through who we want to be the project champion and the executive sponsor on your side, this will go a much faster than probably 6 weeks. These are the types of resources that we would want to interface with on a regular basis.
Okay.
And I said coerce, but I was really tongue in cheek, because I think that the output from what we're going to be delivering is going to be quite valuable. That's the consensus across all the VRS Jumpstarts so far. This is really where I want to leave it right now. I'm happy to continue to answer any questions. I do have 2 questions as a takeaway. I'm excited for the Jumpstart, for what it could bring. Schedules in the summertime can indeed vary, Derek. So you're right to think through exactly who, what, when, where, and why. So I'm happy to leave it here and open it up to any other questions.
Nope. Excited to get on to the next step.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So I think the next step, I'm not going to steal Scott's thunder right here, but I think that we probably want to go into a little bit deeper of a dive. This is kind of a 50,000 foot introduction for 15 minutes. But I think that there's, I don't know, a 30-minute deck that Becky and or one of my managers and colleagues, Ralph Scott, would like to go through. It'll be this and more. And I think that will probably answer questions that you didn't know that you had.
Got it.
So thank you for the time today, gentlemen. I'm excited to get to know you better.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I'm going to get my director and VP in the next call with us for that next section.
Okay.
Wonderful.
James, do you already kind of have the stakeholders in your head of kind of from the executive, project champion, SME, and domains?
Yeah, depending on what level of executive sponsor do you like to usually have for that?
Good question. Everybody's organization is a little bit different. I would say that somebody in the VP level is usually the right area. It depends on how you're organized and who has the authority to kind of help corral and not twist arms. I don't think that's probably the answer. Just like help them focus on the prioritization of this project, because it'll be a short-term engagement. And again, the output is only as valuable as the input. And we really want to be as transparent with you as you are with us, and respectful of time. So VP level.
Hey, James, here's kind of what Casey and I were thinking about how we go about this. We're looking at the VRS as potentially 2 separate engagements. The first engagement being Jumpstart, which is our ability to get our team engaged with you and to understand the business, specifically around what are the integrations, what are the call flows, how are you guys using the platform? I know you're concerned about the gaps of which, what are we using, what are we not using, those kinds of things, right? Yeah. We then look at the second phase where we can go to Baker and team to say, now that we have the information, we can build an ROI from an operational and a cost efficiency perspective to help you get to the transformation at the edge that you want to get to.
Yeah.
Our team, specifically VRS and the extended valuation side, and I have that wrong sometimes. So Ailey, correct me if I got that wrong. That team is specifically works in partnership with VRS to build ROIs for customers. These are those models that we can absolutely put our name behind to say, we've evaluated how this is going to work. We can meet this if that's the goal and how we're going to do that. We want to take that, put it in front of Baker with this executive summary and say, here's what we've learned. Here's how we want to get you to that edge design.
Yeah,
so
I just need to move on all that as fast as humanly possible. So I need to get Copilot going, and I would love to be doing this alongside of it, because I think the effort to do Copilot is an opportunity also for, if we could time it out the right way, VRS could participate in some of those things over the time as well, to shadow, listen, learn, which will be hugely beneficial. But I think right now the iron's hot, coming out of in contact the other day. So I wanna really strike on that. I know that the Salesforce team has an outside company that they're paying Slalom to come in and do a similar exercise with the Salesforce stuff, and I would love to have this lined up with what they're doing. And I know they're starting their engagement next month, so I would love to get as close to that as possible so that I can get that out there.
How quickly, James, do you think the personnel that Ailey's identified here you could have available where we could get to that next meeting? Is it something we can get a date next week, following week? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think we can shoot for something in the next week or two. I gotta see how Darren and Nemi's calendar line up. Is it a half-hour meeting?
I think
yeah.
Ailey?
Yep, it'll be Ralph and Becky. That'll probably be delivering an extended version of what I've just covered. So yes, I think the sooner the better on that one. Even like early next week would be ideal to lock down their calendars if that fits for you all. And then the next steps after that would be, bless you, identifying resources on both our side and yours to say when should this begin.
Yeah, let's see. I'm just looking at some calendars right now.
They don't give me vacation days here, so I'm good anytime, really. I mean, kidding.
The only and empathize with you is Akshay, Ailey, just so you know. He probably has less vacation days because
it looks so. James, unless you know something other than I do, it looks like Nemi is unavailable for the entire week next week.
I'll get that. Don't worry about that. I'll copy you on email right now.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
Never worry about Nemi's calendar.
Nothing
on that. There's nothing on that calendar that's gonna tell you
that makes sense. Gotcha.
Yeah. So between Ailey and I, why don't we come back with you guys with maybe 3 or 4 options that we know Ralph and Becky are available, and then see if you guys can fit into one of those. Maybe that makes the most sense.
So, James, do you want to start a conversation only for Copilot and inbound stuff, or do you want to start digging into
for everything?
Outbound? Everything? Okay.
Everything. So the Copilot engagement going at the right time is fruitful, because part of the VRS is going to need to understand that we're only going to get so much deployed and running with Copilot.
Yeah.
But VRS is essentially going to look at our stack, what licenses we have, what we've bought, what we're using, how we're using it. And Copilot needs to be included in that since we're launching it.
100%.
And those two aren't going to exactly line up at the end, but what we will end up with at the end of that, if we time it out correctly, is Copilot going live sometime October-ish, maybe a little earlier, depending on how these things work out. And this concluding sometime prior, with the roadmap that says, great, here's where you ended up. You're probably ending up in October. Here's where you end up in 2026 and 2027. So it's going to be a concurrent there that's going to hopefully show us that, like, this is where we can get to the end. And obviously, you know, with Poly AI in the mix and Salesforce doing their thing and everything else, there's these moving targets and everything. So us having a very clear idea of here's what we propose with our solutions in play, where we would be, right? So if we're doing CTI and ServiceNow, and CTI and Salesforce, and we're going to do Epic integration at some point at the edge, like we're talking about with Scott, great, cool. We got Poly AI doing some IVA stuff, and we got Salesforce coming in. Salesforce wants to be able to do some stuff. Well, VRS is going to help tell us, well, this is how we play with Salesforce. And these are the things you can look, do, where it should be, where it should line up, where it shouldn't, whatever. And help us paint that that full picture of the next 24 months.
Yep. Hey,
Spot on.
if I'm not mistaken, is VRS involved when we do a DXI consulting for a Copilot deployment?
There is an automatic attach for Copilot and autopilot engagements. Yes.
Yeah. So we should have that noted as we go forward with in Jumpstart that is part of our pilot implementation.
It's just 10 seconds of background history. Copilot and autopilot, our digital products, are not like WFM or any other QM product. It's not plug and play. You've probably never really had anything like this in your environment before. That's why it auto attaches to all different types of quotes that include this, even if there's one license or 150,000 session licenses. The benefit of including VRS at the front end pays off tenfold at the back end when you have a change management platform that you know exactly how to utilize and fully leverage the technology in-house. So that's the goal of VRS, to drive deep adoption and utilization of these products that you've purchased. And that goes above and beyond, and that's why it's a differentiator out there. I don't think any of our direct competitors offer their version of VRS to the level that we do.
So I think a good example of that is workforce management and workforce engagement, right? I don't think they're doing jack with that. Probably could do a lot more, but also service test is definitely not doing anything with it. What could they be doing? Rock pays for licensing. They're not using that. Cool. So everybody, you know, we have 300 people paying for that, and like, what are we getting out of it, right? So if we do this engagement, they say, well, we talk to Rock leadership, and we talk to the agents, and we talk to this person, we talk to that person, and what we think you could get out of it is these by doing this in this time. We have a true plan that we could present to Baker and say, this is it. This is where we would say they should use these two products that they're paying for today.
Yeah.
Right. You don't even need to spend more money, but this is what we can do. Right. So like part of that value is having the third party, not me, not actually go in and talk to all these groups and do the discovery and make recommendations.
Yeah. The underutilization is going to be, I think, overwhelming when we get down to it. And that's
I'm sure.
Yeah, that's where VRS is going to come in and help identify that. So after we hang up here, Ailey, is it okay if I look at their schedules and start getting them on availability for this next call?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I think we should loop in Becky and Ralph. And I mean, they're critical to this. I'm going to be there, so just include me too.
Sounds good.
Override my calendar, whatever I have.
Derek and I will work on time and dates and everything.
Yep. We'll get you some options here shortly, and then let's make sure everybody who needs to be there from both sides is there. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, all right. Nice meeting everyone.
Thank you for your time.
All
nice
right.
to meet you all.
Bye-bye.